Everybody, and welcome to the Sober Report. Today we're doing the Antique Collection by Buffalo Trace. So before we jump into this video, please go to thesoberreport.com and put your name and email into the red box, and I will send you a free guide on how to taste like a pro. So what is the Antique Collection? The Antique Collection consists of 5 whiskeys. The William LaRue Weller Kentucky Straight Bourbon 12-year-old, the Eagle Rare Kentucky Straight Bourbon 17-year-old, the George T. Stagg Kentucky Straight Bourbon no less than 15-year-old, and the Thomas H. Handy Sazerac Straight Rye 6-year-old. So how was the Antique Collection originally assembled? Well, in the fall of 2000, we got a release of 3 whiskeys. 1982 WL Weller 19-year-old, the 1982 WL Weller Kentucky Straight Bourbon 19-year-old, 1984 Eagle Rare Kentucky Straight Bourbon 17-year-old, and the 1982 Sazerac Kentucky Straight Rye 18-year-old. In 2002, we added the George T. Stagg no less than 15-year-old. And in 2003, we unfortunately lost the Weller 19-year-old. But in 2005, the Weller came back, but under a different name. The William LaRue Weller 12-year-old from that point. Previous to that, the 2001 to 2003, we had the 19-year-old. And also in 2005, we had the George T. Stagg in 3 expressions, Lot A, Lot B, and the late fall release. And in 2006, we finally settled on the actual lineup that we have today. So now, let's cover the 2019 fall release of the Antique Collection. But first, let's cover some rules and regulation. For it to be a bourbon, it needs to be a minimum of 51% corn in the mash bill. The mash cannot be distilled no more than 160 proof. The barrel entry must be no more than 125 proof. And it has to be stored in a new charred oak container for a minimum of 2 years. Now remember, it's exactly the same thing if we're talking about rye. Just 51% rye, same container, same aging process, all the same things. Now let's dive into the 2019 William LaRue Weller Kentucky Straight Bourbon 12-year-old. The William LaRue Weller Kentucky Straight Bourbon 12-year-old is actually a wheated bourbon. The mash bill is 70% corn, 16% wheat, and 14% barley. It's actually off the still at 130 proof. It was distilled in the winter of 2007. The evaporation loss is 57%, leaving only 43%, making it a 12-year and 6-month-old whiskey. The proof of this whiskey is 128. Filtration, uncut, unfiltered, straight from the barrel. Find this bottle, the average price is about $1,102, but if you find a bottle around $800, then you are ahead in this game. This rye is a classic rye in style, 125.7 proof, uncut, unfiltered, straight from the barrel. Uncut, unfiltered, straight from the barrel. The mash bill is 100% rye, distilled at 135. This whiskey was distilled in the spring of 2013. At a evaporation loss was 26%, leaving 74% of the original fill. And remember, this is only a 6-year-old and 2-month whiskey, so that's why the evaporation is so low. About 4% a year. Filtration, none, of course, because we said it was uncut, unfiltered, so on. Case production, unavailable. This rye is going to be the less expensive out of all the whiskeys that we're going to be covering today at an average price of $609. But if you can find a bottle for around $500, then you will be good. Then move to the George T. Stagg Kentucky Straight Bourbon, no less than 15-year-old. This bourbon represents what Buffalo Trace is all about. The sour mash is 90% corn, 10% rye. Proof of the still was 135. And it got barrel entry in the spring of 2004 at 125 proof. The evaporation loss was 56%, leaving 44%, making it a 15-year and 3-month-old whiskey. This release is uncut, unfiltered, and the proof is 116.9. Now this bourbon has an average price of $767, but if you can find a bottle under $550, then this is a good purchase. Rare Kentucky Straight Bourbon 17-year-old. Now this bourbon is the oldest out of all of the whiskeys that are released. It's a classic 101 proof that everybody wants. The sour mash bill is 90% corn and 10% rye, exactly like the George T. Stagg Kentucky Straight Bourbon, but this is an actual 17-year-old whiskey. It was distilled in the spring of 2002, and the barrel entry was 125 proof. Now the evaporation loss on this one was 66%, leaving 34%. So 2/3 of this barrel was gone, and it's actually 17 years and 3 months old. It was chilled filtration, and this bourbon has an average price of $1,784, which is basically the most expensive bourbon out of all of the bourbons that are released. If you can find a bottle for $1,500, then this is a good purchase. Dog, the Sazerac Kentucky Straight Rye 18-year-old. This is basically the best Kentucky and oldest Kentucky rye that you can buy. The mash bill is 100 proof. The mash bill is 100% rye. Proof off the still is 135. Case production is unknown, of course. The evaporation loss is 83.5%, leaving only 16.5%. That is 6/7 of the whole barrel gone to the angel share. Yeah, that's craziness right there. This whiskey is proofed down to 90, and filtration says none, but I'm sure there's a cold filtration through there. This rye on average is about $1,274, but if you can find a bottle for about $900, then this is an amazing steal. The overall package of these whiskeys are not the greatest packages in the world for me personally. I think that there could do a lot better with that, and it should update the package. But at this point, you need to remember that these are the most sought out whiskeys in America when it comes to the single straight collection. If you're looking to buy older whiskeys in this categories from the 82s, 83s, and 84s, please remember that you need to make sure that the provenance is good from a reputational dealer, because remember, we never get the case count. We never know how many bottles they've made. And frankly, there is no knowing how much is out there, how much has been counterfeited, and how much is actually real or how much has been drank out there. So please remember. So please be careful. If you are buying a bottle of 82, 83, or 84 of the original selections from 2000 to 2003, before the Weller went away, and you find a bottle of the Weller 19-year-old that's considered basically the holy grail of wheated whiskeys out in the world, then hold on to your hat, because we will be looking at a minimum of $6,500 a bottle, and not as if you can find a bottle. So remember, Buffalo Trace is really the only game in town. They have been making amazing whiskeys for a very, very long time. That said, stay sober, and I'll see you in the next one.